Little or nothing in the way of news comes out of Afghanistan. So the only way to find out what goes on there is to go in and see for yourself. That is easier said than done. You start by making contact with one of the resistance groups who move back and forth across the Pakistan-Afghanistan border. If they trust you, you sit down and talk. The group we made contact with seemed eventually to trust us. Producer Andy Lack, cameraman Mike Edwards, and soundman Peter O'Connor, and they agreed to take us back with them across the border to the war they are fighting against Soviet troops and Afghan army regulars led by Soviet advisors. If the Soviets are winning the war in the cities, and they appear to be, along the southern border in the mountains, where a good half of Afghanistan's 17 million people live, the resistance fighters have the upper hand. Because an American would stand out like a beacon in those mountains, the resistance fighters disguised us as one of them. I'm standing on the border between Pakistan and Afghanistan, a border that is now closed to most everyone except refugees fleeing the Soviet invasion. These Afghan clothes I'm wearing were part of an operation to sneak me and a CBS News film crew into Afghanistan. The operation succeeded. So far as we can tell, we are the only full television crew to get inside Afghanistan in recent months. The Pakistani government refuses to let journalists cross the border, officially saying they cannot be responsible for our safety. We were smuggled into Afghanistan by a young Mujahidin. Mujahidin, the Muslim word for freedom fighter, or fighter in a holy war. In this case, as the Mujahideen see it, a holy war against the Soviets. A war, they say, that if they get weapons from us or anyone else in the free world, they will win. You have to walk to this war, and what you see first is a stream of refugees walking away from it. And then you see why. An armed Soviet helicopter from the Russian military base in Jalalabad, Afghanistan's second largest city, and a Soviet stronghold 50 miles from the border. Our first day in, we reached the mountains that surround Jalalabad and put us just 3 miles from where the Afghan resistance forces have been launching attacks on the Soviets. There we hooked up with a small band of guerrillas led by this white-bearded man. His name is Yassini, and he lives on the run, moving from mountain hideouts through tiny villages of straw and mud huts to the opium fields that often provide him and his men cover from the Russian aircraft that circle continuously. Yassini took us first to a garrison on the outskirts of Jalalabad that he had recaptured from the Soviet-led Afghan army. The Afghan army has dwindled now to about 35,000 men. Defections are high, and in the battle over this fort, the Soviets were unable to keep their Afghan troops in line. We got the story through our interpreter, Eden Nabi, a leading American scholar on Afghanistan who came with us from the States.
We used to come here and fight, yes. We used to come at night. For 11 times at night we came and we fought, and there were Mausers over there that were firing at us. And they had other kinds of heavy weapons also.
Russian made?
Shoravi? Yes.
1976.
It's made in Russia, but we got it. We captured it from the Afghan army.
Does he have ammunition for this? He has 3, but does he have ammunition, a lot of ammunition?
No, we didn't capture any. We make them ourselves, though, from powder.
What kind of weapons does he need?
Anti-tank, rocket launcher, anti-tank.
But there were Afghan soldiers in here.
اینجا عسکر افغان بود.
تمام عسکر افغان بود.
Yes.
و مشاور شوروی هم در مابینش بود.
Yes, there was all Afghan soldiers with a Soviet advisor.
Oh, with a Soviet advisor. Was he killed?
مشاور شوروی کشته شد.
نه مشاور شوروی گریخت.
No, he fled.
He fled. How many of your people were killed here?
چند نفر از مجاهدین شما؟
یک نفر کشته شده.
One of us was wounded and another killed.
And how many of the Afghan army soldiers were killed here?
و از عسکر افغان چند نفر کشته شدن اینجا؟
تقریبا
About 35 people.
35 نفر.
Has he seen any napalm?
شما هیچ نیپام، اثر نیپام اینجا دیدین؟
بله. اثر نپام که آتش میاندازه.
Yes, you mean the one that throws down fire on us.
گاز هم استعمال میکنه گاز.
Yes, they also use gas, yes.
Does he know that they use gas?
One
of Yassini's men, a doctor, had been directly affected.
Yes, he's a medical man, and now he's a mujahid.
Can you describe to me exactly what the gas felt like?
He himself was in the trenches when a bomb was dropped, which he says produced an effect. There was a black smoke, and when that black smoke came, there was also a smell.
He's absolutely sure it was some sort of gas.
He says what I can be sure of is that there was a smell, and then when that happened, we were all unconscious for about half an hour.
Throughout the day, we spotted several types of Soviet aircraft flying in and out of their main supply depot in Jalalabad. Afraid of being spotted ourselves, we began a long march undercover into the nearby mountains with a 14-man patrol. Our goal, a ridge looking down on a Soviet emplacement. The climb was straight up, 10,000 feet.
The unit arrived at the top just as the sun set behind the far mountain. Objective to scout a possible location of tanks on the perimeter of Jalalabad. The sound of nearby helicopters has stopped the patrol. Yes, there are 2 tanks. A flare. They just started firing. The resistance fighters have opened up with automatic weapons from the top of the ridge toward the tanks below. Anti-tank gun goes off. Now again, silence. Artillery shell. Anti-tank round. Impossible to know where it hit or if it struck home. Artillery round struck very close. That's automatic weapons fire from the resistance fighters trying to rake the base of the ridge to keep any patrols from making their way up. You would figure that they're beginning to get our range. We're going to move off the ridge and scramble down below. That round hit the ridge just below us. And the mortar hit very close. The last light goes. And I don't know when anybody's been so glad to see stars.
In the morning, we sighted more Soviet helicopters. There were reports that the fighting would soon intensify. Yassini wanted to keep us moving. He took us up to his command post in the mountains.
Is he worried about these helicopters back here? I hear that bombing sound in the background.
شما این هلیکوپتر که میآید خطری برای ما
نه.
He says no, it's not going to bother us, don't worry.
But it seems to me the airplanes and the helicopters, which are just across that hill, could attack him easily.
I think he's trying to assure us.
Do the Russians ever come up here? Do they come out of Jalalabad to try to catch him up here?
The trek took 3 hours, a walk Yassini often takes 2 or 3 times a day. For an 18th century man fighting a 20th century war, these mountains are his only safe haven. Once we were there, he wanted to show us the few heavy weapons he had gotten recently in Pakistan. We wanted to see if any American arms had reached him through various rumored CIA operations.
It's about 1 month that they have resettled in this area since they took the other area from the soldiers.
Now, is this his main headquarters?
His command post, a cave carved out of the side of a mountain.
Yes, they hide the place where this is because they're afraid that it might get bombed.
It's guarded by a handful of men on the lookout for Soviet reconnaissance planes. After some tea, some bread and rice, the commander put his arsenal on display.
Now, Commander, where did you get this? Where did you get this? This is a real antique here. Could we sit it down and take a look? Sit it down and take a look. How long has he had this weapon?
It's about 2 months.
Does he know it's World War I?
Their forefathers used to fight with swords, and this is all they have. to fight with also, because Afghanistan doesn't have technical progress.
Is this the only heavy automatic weapon that he has?
Yeah, I
No,
understand.
they only have the Kalashnikovs. which
Yeah, that's a
are
hand
taken
weapon. This is
from
really heavy.
Afghanistan.
Now, what is this over here?
This is new. They have just gotten it.
Is this the only mortar that he has?
No, that's all we have.
This is, says it's a 72 millimeter Pakistani made. And these are the best weapons you have, huh? They only have about 20 rounds for this?
That's all. They have 20 rounds, yes. And they know that these are all old weapons, and they really aren't up to doing anything to the Russian weaponry that's around. But that's all they have, and this is why they want help. And he is saying that America seems to be asleep. It doesn't seem to realize that if Afghanistan goes and the Russians go over to the Gulf, that in a very short time it's going to be the turn of the United States as well.
But I'm sure he knows that in Vietnam we got our fingers burned, indeed we got our whole hands burned when we tried to help in this kind of situation.
میگه که دستمون سوخت در ویتنام الان ما امریکا چی کار میتونه بکنه؟ Your hands were burned in Vietnam, but if you don't agree to help us, if you don't ally yourself with us, then all of you, your whole body will be burnt eventually. Because there is no one in the world who can really fight and resist as well as much and as well as the Afghans are.
But no American mother wants to send her son to Afghanistan.
ولی هیچ کدام مادر امریکایی نمیخواد که پسرش بیاد اینجا بمیره. We don't need anybody's soldiers here to help us, but we're being constantly accused that the Americans are helping us with weapons. What we need, actually, are the American weapons. We don't need or want American soldiers. We can do the fighting ourselves.
Do any of his units have any American weaponry? Any of these various odd lots that he's in connection with?
هیچ کدام از این گروه‌های Not one of them. They don't have any American weaponry.
اگه ما نبودیم شما هم نیستی.
If we don't survive, you won't either.
ما می جنگیم که ما کمک کنی. اگه ما نبودیم در دنیا هیچ کس نمیمانه که روسا سر دنیا حکومت نکنه.
If you allow this situation to continue, if you allow the Russians to hammer us down, then there is no place in the world that the Russians will not have the courage to go
But one
into.
last question here. The Russians have already hammered them down, have they not?
مگر شوروی شما را شکست نداده الان؟
نه.
It's a holy war they're fighting, a jihad they call it, a war they will have to win on faith. Islam is their strongest weapon now, even stronger, they will tell you, than the anti-tank weapons they so desperately need. This is not a tank, it's a tractor, but it carries a message in this war all its own: refugees. They pour across the border at night mostly, safer for the women and children. Estimates run to 10,000 a day. There are, in fact, 500,000 Afghan refugees registered already with the Pakistani government, and no one doubts that another 500,000 are on their way. At the current rate of arrival, 1 out of 10 Afghans will become refugees by summer, a staggering figure in so short a time. We followed this long road out with them. It led through a no-man's land of ancient tribal territories to the northwest frontier province of Bajaur in Pakistan, a 2-day walk. 6 miles inside the Pakistani border, we found 2 refugee camps adjacent to one another. The first was filled with widows and orphans, whose husbands and fathers had been killed in the village of Kerala. Kerala is a name that one day may be as familiar as My Lai. 1,100 men reportedly were massacred in Kerala a year ago for not complying with Russian reforms. A government information officer confirmed the story.
The village people said that we believe in our Islamic society and we are not going to accept your communistic and socialistic regime. When they didn't accept, the soldiers opened fires on them and they killed all the people on the spot, at least 1,000 and something.
Over 1,000?
Yes.
We moved on to the next camp, where some 3,000 refugees had just been settled. New camps are established somewhere in the border area almost daily.
Now, what's the outlook? Will there be more refugees coming in?
Yes, surely. The refugees are even on the way. Thousands in battalions they are coming.
Perhaps I could talk with some of them. Maybe we can move in here if you'd be kind enough to interpret where necessary.
Yes.
Hello. Hello, my name is Rather. Can he tell me why did he come here?
Due to the Russians' atrocities.
Tell me about those atrocities.
There was arson and destroyed our villages. They used bombs on our villages and the tanks on the land.
Did he actually see this?
Yes.
What did you see? Airplanes or helicopters or tanks or what?
Helicopters. All of them.
I think he can speak.
Do you speak English?
No, a little.
A little. You see helicopters?
Yes,
Airplanes?
yes,
Tanks?
yes.
Paratroopers?
I not understand.
Paratroopers da barajaz na chara urza.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
You did see paratroopers?
Chate wala.
Russians or Afghan?
The Russianu ka Afghanistan wala.
Russia.
My friend, let me ask you a direct question. Is Afghanistan lost?
He's just asking for arms and ammunition, including tanks, planes, and helicopters.
But he knows that's not realistic.
Then we are on the mercy of God, what we can do, if it's not possible.
But he's obviously an intelligent and wise man. He knows that it's over in Afghanistan.
Afghanistan باره کې تاسو څه خیال دی چې تاسو هغه اوس واخیستو که تاسو واپس خپل ځای ته لاړ شئ. They have taken shelter here, but they think that they are going again for the holy war.
Do you expect to go back?
تاسو خیال دی تمه دې شته چې واپس به لاړ شئ. They're expecting to go back because their leader is there and he's fighting there.
These people tell me it isn't over.
They don't know.
So you think Afghanistan is gone?
I think so. I might be wrong, but I think so.
How about the chance of there becoming guerrilla fighters in their country, effective guerrilla
It's
fighters?
impossible, because without arms and ammunition, you cannot fight. And no country is providing arms and ammunition to Mujahidin, freedom fighters.
So what happens to these people?
I think they will be permanently a chronic problem for Pakistan, and they will be a burden. In addition to the Pakistan's population, this will be an addition.
This is a training session for new recruits, Afghans who have settled their families in Pakistan and are now ready to go back home and fight. The spirit was there, but the organization and discipline to fight seriously was missing. Afghan resistance fighters, many believe, have been over-romanticized. They have fought among themselves as much as they have fought outside interference. They lack real leadership in the face of overwhelming Soviet might. But the leader of this group, a man named Mujahidin, a prominent Afghan who fled his country several years ago, saw it differently.
I think no power can stop the general rise up of the public. Now when the Afghanistan 17 million or 19 million people, children, women, and old people, young and old people, they have decided that they will fight until to the last moment of life. They will continue their struggle. And no power, I think, it will stop it. Either the Russian power will destroy all the public of Afghanistan, nobody will left here. Or by help of God, we shall kick them out.
A protracted guerrilla war, if that's what the Afghan insurgency becomes, will almost certainly bring most of the resistance fighters here, to Dara, a town as old and as famous in this part of Pakistan as Dodge City was in the American West. Dara is where you buy guns, any guns.
How much?
They make copies of them all here, especially the Russian Kalashnikov,
$600.
a favorite among Afghans who sell their homegrown opium for the best available weapons.
Now, when the Afghan man buys a weapon here, when he buys a rifle, does he go back into Afghanistan?
Yes, back to Afghanistan.
Back into Afghanistan?
Yes. Every day is back.
Every day is back?
Yes, every day is take a rifle and back to Afghanistan.
So they don't stay here in Dara?
No, only 2 days or 3 days.
In truth, there are many who don't go back to Afghanistan, at least not right away. They drift down here to Peshawar, Pakistan's largest city near the Afghan border. In Peshawar, there are now half a dozen rival political factions trying to organize some kind of respectable movement to free Afghanistan. The movement has produced more talk than action. But the talk does draw some attention. And one man in particular appears to have a reasonably strong following. His name is Gulbuddin Hikmatyar, a 33-year-old former engineering student from Kabul University. He has been compared in some ways to a young Khomeini, a deeply religious man who, unlike other Afghan leaders, wants no American help. From the United States, you and your party, do you want weapons?
No.
Do you want money?
No.
Do you want anything?
We don't want anything. So I will explain this one.
Please.
The case of Afghanistan is a fight between a superpower who has captured our country and our own nation. And we don't want this fight to be between two superpowers. We don't want Afghanistan to be Vietnam for Russia. These last 20 months, 100,000 of our people were killed, assassinated, and mass killing. I am asking why American was silent in these 20 months.
Hikmatyar doesn't explain why other Muslim countries have been so slow to offer their support. It may be they simply think it's a lost cause. Meanwhile, the reports keep coming in from the battlefields, and the families of the Mujahideen gather around makeshift bulletin boards for news from home. Freedom fighters and foreign invasions are almost tradition in this part of the world. You think about that while walking here among the graves in the old British cemetery, just north of where the British invaded Afghanistan a century ago. It makes you wonder now where the Soviets are burying their dead, and how many Afghans will die fighting the Soviets before the Soviets decide whether they need Afghanistan. The doctors at Lady Reading Government Hospital in Peshawar are asking the same questions. If you want to see the war in Afghanistan, this is as good a place as any. 80 war-related cases a day come into the emergency ward here. 10 may be admitted for major surgery. Doctor, what's this patient's? Obviously, she's lost her arm.
She has come to us as a case of blast injury. She was in the home and she got this by shelling. There was shelling outside and she got it injury on the right upper limb and on the buttock, right buttock.
The shelling, was it by artillery or from helicopter, airplane?
This was not by the plane, it was by the
By artillery.
By artillery.
What happens to her now, Doctor?
She has lost her right limb, and now she is with us for the infected wound on the right buttock. It's quite deep, and we are dressing it daily.
Does she have children?
She has got one daughter, and she is alive. So, she has lost 5 family members in the war.
She has lost 5?
Yeah, she has lost 5 members of the family.
Is her husband still living?
Yeah. Her husband is alive.
How old is this woman, Doctor?
Probably she's 30 years.
This is the father?
He is the father.
How do you do? Did he see fighting as well?
He says that I was outside in the hills fighting with the opposition.
Tell us what happened.
He says that they were in the hills and they get shelling by the planes up, but they used to hide there, and then they used to fire on the planes from below.
Does he plan to go back?
He says that 2 of my brothers, they are still busy there in the war, and the moment he gets, she is better, he will go back himself.
Doctor, what is her injury?
I think she has broken her leg. It's a femur. He said that she's so much frightened, you know, from the bombardment and everything that she can't talk now.
She has lost her father and some of her relatives as well.
Do we know how old she is?
7 years.
Doctor, you see most of these cases, or a good many of them.
Yes, we do.
What do these people tell you as a general rule? Tell me some of the stories they tell you.
Majority of them, they go to the war and they get wounded there. But some of them, and especially women and children, old people too, they are either they are shot in the houses or when they are on their way to Pakistan, they are shot.
They're shot on their way here?
Their way here.
Doctor, have you heard these kinds of stories? Tell me what you've heard from the patients.
Well, it's true. Usually the male people, I mean the male member of the family, they go to the war, but the female, usually they get wounded because of shelling or because of the bomb blast and all these things.
Doctor, do you hear this every day from all of these patients that they will go back?
Yes, most of them, they say the same story.
He says that my country is dear to me and I have to go back.
He swears that he'll go back. Today, even today, if he's honest, he'll go.
Do you believe they'll go back?
Well, definitely. If this is the spirit that he has, he will go, definitely.
He said it doesn't matter all these bombs and planes and tanks, you know, he'll try his best what he can.